Where did it all start?
Well, it started in Raleigh, North Carolina,
Okay.
where a situation got crazy. A drug deal went terribly wrong that me and a friend of mine were trying to conduct. And without getting into too much of my case, man, shots were fired. Someone was killed, and I was implicated in that. And while in trial, I got found guilty. And my lawyer told me once the jury heard drugs, guns, and murder, that's all they needed to hear to come back with a guilty verdict. So a lot of the aggravating and mitigating factors weren't even really addressed. I would say more of the mitigating factors weren't addressed. The aggravating factors worked well against me, but the mitigating factors weren't really addressed or even thought of. They were dismissed. And I got sentenced to natural life in prison. In other words, what that means is never to be released.
So how was it like when they said naturally life sentence? Like when you heard that?
When I heard natural life.
When you heard it, it's one thing when you hear like 5 years, 10 years, or 100 years. They gave Bernie Madoff
Right.
like 10 life sentences,
Exactly.
but they said natural life.
Yeah,
like how did that? What was your mindset when you heard that?
Well, the words natural life, to be handed that kind of sentence, man, it had a whole different effect as opposed to having gotten 1,000 years. You know, when you get a sentence that doesn't have a period behind it, that means it's open-ended and it's indefinite. And I don't have anything to compare it to because I never had a sentence like that before, but in my mind and in my heart, I really felt like I would rather be dead than try to live that out. Because to live that out is to do it until you do die. So how do you want to do this? You want to live long and die that way, or you want to die now and not have to worry about it? So that was my rationale after the shock factor wore off. Initially when I heard it, I was numb with shock to where my mind would not receive it. It kept rejecting it because what do you mean natural life? I'm 21 years old, and if I live to be 70, that would be 59 years in prison? I mean, that's incomprehensible. Who does that?
Who gives that?
Who gives that out?
Yeah.
First time offender?
So your family, before we get to your family, like, is there any, like, you was in there for what, 24 and a half years, bro?
24 and a half years.
That's like, there had to be some ups and downs, right?
Yeah, way more downs than ups.
Way more downs than ups.
Absolutely.
We'll get to the downs, but like, what was the upside of being incarcerated? Was it like, because there had to have been a point where you saw a light at the end of the tunnel also, right?
Well, that came way later on. I didn't see anything. I was blinded with a deep sense of grief. It was like a death. It was like watching myself suffocate. It was like watching myself suffocate and not being able to assist myself to get some air. Like somebody put a plastic bag over my head and I have to watch it. And I'm not able to poke a finger in my mouth to get some air. My hands are tied. And I can't close my eyes because it's in my mind. I'm always looking at it. So to watch myself slowly suffer, I can't describe that, man. I can't really put it in words. And I try. I'm a writer. I journal. And I love words. So I'm always trying to be descriptive in my expressions, but I can't. Nah, man, I tried to do that for the whole 24 and a half years. And I came pretty close sometimes. But when I looked at it again, I realized I was nowhere near it. So it was an absolute, it was a drama being played out, man, with no relief again and again and again. So it's a miracle that I'm sitting here, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So how does it feel like, I know you was telling me, you know, it's weird, like 24 years ago, there was no cell phones. There was no internet, right? You had to get adjusted to a lot lot of things.
Yeah, and I still am adjusting.
How
man.
crazy. Yeah, we're at Panera Bread. You never even been to Panera Bread.
What is that? I never even heard of Panera.
They make sandwiches.
What type of bread is Panera?
Yo.
Bread? Like, I thought that was a type of bread when I first heard
No,
it.
listen. They make like soups, but they also, you get like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich here.
even look, all of this movement around me has my attention. I'm looking at this camera, this phone, and I'm looking at you, but I see everything behind me. My environment trained me that way. My eyes are not going that way, but I'm paying full attention to everything moving behind me.
So let me ask you this. What was, if you had to say, I'm sure there was a lot of things together that, helped you get through this, but if you just had to say there was one main thing that got you through all of this, 24 and a half years. We ain't talking about, some people would be talking about, I did 12 months. I did 18 months, 5 years, 10 years, 24 and a half years. That's a long time. That's a really long time, bro. Like, what was the one thing that stood out the most that really helped you get through that time?
My family support.
Okay. Didn't they move or something like that?
They relocated. I'm from New Jersey, so.
Shout out to Jersey.
Yeah, that's right. Big city. Once I got sentenced, my mother and my sister, they relocated solely to support me. And I had no hope. I told you I wanted to die. I would have rather have died. When I went to bed at night and closed my eyes, I asked God to not wake me up in the morning because it was too heavy. I'm a pretty strong guy, but that weight was too much for me to carry for such a length of time. However, my hope was nurtured through their hope because I didn't have any hope. And my mother, she asked me to promise her that if she would continue to fight for me on the outside, that I would be getting to fight for myself just to live. And my life was based on living long enough to get a visit from her the next time she came. That's all that mattered. And eventually, her hope beget my hope, and it kind of nurtured itself, and it sprouted, and it grew, and it kind of burgeoned into me developing this unrealistic belief that somehow, some way, I was gonna get out, man.
Was there like a moment where that really stuck out, like where you was like, damn, wait a minute, Ma, you might be right? Like, what was the light at the tunnel? Was it your mom, your sister? Was there a moment? Was there some news? Was there a scripture? Was God involved? Did they pray for you? Like, what was it?
It wasn't. I don't think it's fair to try to put it into this one moment, aha moment. The sky cracked open and I saw this bright light, or this one little instance of something magnificent. It was a series of small steps toward having this courage to hope in a hopeless place. And every visit, every letter, every time I was able to call home, every time I received any kind of mail from the outside, from a friend or my family, it was a reminder that I am somebody, because being in prison alone in and of itself and having such a lengthy sentence is constantly chipping away at your existence. You are nobody. You don't matter. 1 year goes by. You are nobody. You don't matter. 5 years go by. And people die. People stop writing. And people stop sending pictures, and they stop sending money as the time progresses. And you start to wonder, did I ever matter? Did I ever live on the street for 21 years before I came to prison? Like, what's real and what's a dream? Was I always here? Because the pieces of myself that I left out there before I came to prison, it's starting to get blurry. They're starting to fade, like Polaroid flicks. So you got this war going on in your head about who am I and who do I matter to. So the more I'm slipping that way, they call my name for a visit, and that sets me up straight. And then the more I'm slipping that way, they call my name because I got a letter from somebody, and that sets me up straight again. So the gravity of being incarcerated is constantly pressing me down. But my family's insistence upon showing up and supporting me was constantly pulling me back up. And eventually, with persistence and consistency, the pulling me up factor began to get stronger. And it was harder and harder to push me down. Now I'm getting my own legs up under me also. And now I'm becoming more and more immovable. And getting out of prison mattered less. What mattered more was saying I am somebody. Yes, I'm here. I've been here 5 years. I've been here 10 years, but I'm still somebody. And I'm sitting up straight now. And I'm looking people in the eye now. And my dignity is being restored. And while that's going on, getting out of prison was taking care of itself, and I didn't even know it. because that mattered less. What mattered was, yo, you haven't died, you didn't kill yourself, so you have decided to try to live through this, or live while in this place. So live with a sense of self.
Did you read a lot while
Absolutely.
What was some of
my favorite books?
Yeah, some of your favorite books.
Sidney Poitier, Measure of a Man, Arthur Ashe, Days of Grace, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, Viktor Frankl's Mankind, Search for Meaning, Bruce Lee, which is one of my favorites. I can name a whole list of his books.
Be Like Water.
Be Like Water,
yeah,
man. That philosophy carried me. So it was so many pieces that I gathered from a lot of different things. Kind of like Jeet Kune Do is a bunch of different things compiled into a style. So many different pieces and suggestions and advice from this movement of support that I gained work together to establish a foundation that I could sit up on, and then I could stand up on, and then I could walk on. And excuse me. And I was going through this evolution. It was like a rebirth. You know, in the Christian faith, it talks about what it means to be born again. I experienced that because I died when the judge sentenced me at 21 years old. My soul died. However,
did you wild out when they said, because I'm just, you know, you'll be different in the situation, but if somebody said that to me, my personality, I'll be like, yo, what?
I was
like, how was you when they
paralyzed with shock? Internally, I did all of that, but I didn't have, my muscles were so weak and limp from the fatigue
of just hearing it.
Damn. I couldn't move, man. I was paralyzed with shock, man. I really couldn't move, man. I was catatonic. Like, I can't believe this has happened to me. And I didn't take the onus of responsibility off myself. How did I let my life get to this point? What did I ever do to get in this kind of situation? And I'm used to being in situations where I can move myself out of in one way or another. This was immovable. I didn't have a resource. I didn't have a phone call to make. I didn't have a trump card to play. So I took it on the chin, man. And in the words of most fighters, particularly Mike Tyson, everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Then everything changes, man. That sentence, man, was a blow, man. It was a death blow.
Man, so, like, what would you say is... I'm trying to think, like, what's something that you really missed on the outside? Because you're only 21 years old. You didn't get to experience much of life.
Well, I lived an active life, man. I traveled.
Did you miss women?
I missed everything. You go through so many
Were you
phases.
Dating when you were incarcerated?
Yeah, I actually was.
Before you, right in the midst of it?
Yeah, I was a dater, man. I enjoy being in relationships. You know, I'm a relationship kind of guy. And you go through phases, man. You miss the superficial things first. You miss your clothes, you miss your car, you miss your cologne, you miss your women, you miss the way you move around. And as time go on, if you are evolving, you start to miss more domestic things like taking a bath, carpet on your feet, a soft chair, a full-size bed as opposed to a bunk with a sheet of metal up under it with a mattress this thick. You miss petting a dog. You miss hearing the voice of a child playing. Stuff most people take for granted every day. You miss opening the refrigerator to get a glass of water. You just miss the smell of trees, of pine, of grass, of food, of restaurants. You miss nightlight. See, in prison, you're never outside at night, ever. You miss squinting your eyes at a bright light in the darkness. You miss all of these things that many people take for granted, man. You miss what tree bark feels like on your hand.
All right, you've seen the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Most definitely.
It's a very popular movie, and I wanted to ask you a question, like your take on Andy Dufresne, I think his name was, the guy that was, how do we say it, unjustly convicted. Right. They said he had this feeling like he wasn't in prison.
Yeah, I had been told that. I had been ridiculed for that. Even though I was in all that inner turmoil, I was always told that I act like I'm not in prison because I didn't differentiate the staff from the inmate population. I treated everybody across the board like they were human beings. So when I did deal with a staff member, a sergeant, a lieutenant, or a captain, I showed him no more respect than I showed the dude who had the same kind of sentence I had, or maybe a lesser sentence. I didn't show any differentiation, and I got ridiculed for that. And the system is set up to break you in a way where you should carry yourself like you don't matter. And if you do that, then they feel like, yo, we know where you are, we know we have you. But if you can at least appear like you holding your head up when you're really not, that stood out. And I was ridiculed for that. And sometimes I was ridiculed for that because I was a northerner, and because I had an accent, and because of the way I walked. And when I got my legs back up under me, I knew I was a fighter and I wasn't going to succumb to that. And then they would use different tactics to try to take that out of my head and my heart. Like, you got a natural life sentence, right? When you're in prison, you have a case manager, and you see that case manager once a month. And each month the case manager spends a few minutes with you, telling you how you can best do your time. You can go to school, you can get this kind of job, blah, blah, blah. And my case managers would sometimes remind me that I had this natural life sentence. And they would look at my reaction after they said that. And when I recognized what I felt some of them were trying to do, I would sit up straight and say, yeah, I understand that. And then they would move on to something else. And a part of the psychology of prison is to break you mentally, because if they can do that, then they have you in every other way.
Man, what else did we want to ask you?
Yo, this is unbelievable, man, that I'm sitting here right now, man.
Do you have any did you have, like, who's the most inspiring person? Like, I watched this movie called South Central, and I've never been incarcerated, so I don't know. So if I keep referencing movies, it's just I'm trying to relate. But there's a movie called South Central, and the guy that made it through, his name is Bumpy Johnson, or Bobby Johnson. And
OG Bobby Johnson.
You need help taking down Willie Manchester? Just call on Deuce. All right, so he met one person in there that was inspiring, that was like, yo, kept on him, make sure he kept staying on the right path, kept telling him he could get out, or the possibility. Did you have anybody in there that was kind of inspiring to you?
Yeah, I received those inspirations in phases and stages. There was no one single person inside that kind of gave me that. I learned so many things by default. I learned how I didn't want to carry myself through observing how other people carried themselves, or how other people dealt with themselves while incarcerated. And I seen them deteriorate mentally, and I seen them have to get on medication just to make it through the day, because their sober minds couldn't deal with it no more. It eroded. And I used to say to myself, wow, there go I if I don't find another way. I'm not above them, and I don't know what they had been through while in prison to even experience that. When I first started doing my time, prison was ultra violent, man. You seen a lot of, I believe I might suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I seen so much violence, man, brutal. And
you see anybody get killed?
Absolutely, killed, raped, bludgeoned.
See, I don't know, how do people die? I know it happens, but how do people die? You think it's a safe, like they got security?
Well, you got to think, if you have a prison that holds 1,000 men, you might have 200 or 300 officers that are watching over 1,000 men, and it's almost impossible to ensure the safety of anybody. How does anybody sneak into the White House? You would think that would be one of the most secure places in the United States, right? But people still some kind of way get over the gate and get pretty close. So prison, you got to think, prison is a place where people appear to be on guard, but it's the house of pain, man. And hurt people gonna figure out how to hurt people. In prison, you find human ingenuity, how the mind can be so creative to do something. You would think, how can somebody escape from prison? And I've been in 11 different prisons, and they seem like it's impossible for somebody to escape. But people still figure out how to do it. So if you want to relate that to the violence in prison, people can sitting still enough in prison and taking the time to think about how to harm somebody, it comes easy to you. If that's what you set your mind on. Because all it takes is a split second. All it takes is for that officer to have to go use the bathroom. Real
or sneeze.
Quick. Or sneeze.
Yeah,
real
sneeze
quick.
one too
or
many
fall
times.
asleep on his post. They're human beings. And they do that.
So you talk about violence, and if you listen, guys, if you guys have a question, ask it now. We're about to turn this off. You'll see the rest of it because my phone is actually about to die. You'll see the rest of it later. Talking about violence. You know what's going on in Chicago right now?
Yes.
They said it's like 730 or something like that people in 2016 got murdered.
Right.
That's like 2 people a day. What do you think, like, if you had an opportunity, because I know you do a lot of good stuff, you talk to a lot of groups right now.
Absolutely.
Like, if they put you in a room with all the gangbangers and all the young folk, the old folk, the OGs, and they say, hey, Will, we want you to come and speak to all of these people, like, what would your message be to them?
Well, like you said at first, I do motivational speaking, I mentor teens, I do personal training. I said all that to say that I'm always interacting with human beings in a hands-on way. And I have talked to gang members, OGs. I've been in prison with them. I've been in prison with some real shot callers. And it takes a certain skill set to realistically connect with people at a place where they respect you and you have some kind of credibility with them. Once you establish that credibility, people will tend to listen to you. And for me, unfortunately, we live in a society, once I say I did 24 and a half years in prison, I'm vetted. I'm an OG if I choose to be. They ready to label me and give me the flag and the stripes just because of that. That gets saluted. To come out of prison with a sound mind, have done no snitching, just done your time, man, off the rip, man, you already saluted, man. You a solid dude, man. I don't know how you did it, but you a solid dude. I don't run around with a banter for that. You know what I mean? I don't glorify that. That's just my story. However, if I was in that position to talk to anybody, be it one person or a group of guys that were living their lives in a way that directs them toward prison or the grave, I would probably do way more listening than I did any talking. Because I think we got a story to share.
So nobody, you feel maybe people, they're not listening to them.
They're not listening.
They're going like, hey, let's bring Will in to go talk to these people.
And I am.
And someone needs to go in and
out
listen.
that way.
Okay.
Like, yo, Will, we got a group of people we want you to go talk to. And I received the invitation in the spirit of going to talk to them. But the shock fact is that when I get there, I do way more listening than I do any talking. And then that's when
that's good.
That's when truth is born and a camaraderie is established when you go to listen, because everybody's story is different. Everybody's not in a gang for the same reasons.
Yeah.
They just not. They got way different circumstances. But if you listen, you can conclude that, and then you can tailor make what you want to say for this guy or for that girl. But when you go in wanting to do all the talking, nothing gets done.
It's like if a doctor, you go into a doctor and he's doing all the talking, he can't find what your problem is.
I didn't say my leg was hurting. I told you it was my shoulder.
So he's got to ask you questions like, "Yo, what's going on?
Yeah.
All right, how did that happen? Why did that happen? All right, yeah, I actually like that. That's out of all the questions I see on CNN and people trying to figure out the cure for what's going on in Chicago and anywhere else. Yeah, they need to bring your boy Will in. That's good. You listen to them. Let me get this real quick. How did you how long has we did that? How long has he been in jail and how long has he been out? Oh, how long have you been out?
I've been out 13 months.
13 months. He's been out 13 months. How many innocent people are in jail?
It's not a very high percentage, but there are some innocent people in prison. I would say 10 to 15% of the people that are incarcerated are dead innocents. Innocence is such an ambiguous expression. What do you mean by innocent? Most people in jail have committed an offense the size of a notebook. But the sentence that they get or receive as a consequence of that is the size of a skyscraper. So in my mind, that person's innocent because justice was not served. The crime is the size of a sheet of paper. Absolutely. The court system knows that. The individual, the perpetrator knows that. However, the sentence is the size of the building that manufactures the paper. That's not justice. That's innocence to me. I live with guys like that say, yeah, man, I'm guilty of this. And I can live with myself under that pretense. However, the courts didn't do that. They didn't sentence me in accordance with what I'm guilty of. That's more painful than anything. And just as painful as somebody that's 100% innocent. So that's my way of answering that question.
That was good. We're really about to cut this off. It's going to cut off on its own. Your skin is like, on a scale from 0 to 100, I don't know if they can see this, but his skin is like, it might be even better than mine. I don't know. But I attribute good skin to a good diet.
Okay.
Did you just get the past 13 months? Did you just get this, or?
Well, nah. I've been in the fitness, exercise, and holistic health has been a contribution to my sanity in such an insane environment. Because once I decided that I wasn't gonna die, I had to approach living in a holistic way so I could be healthy enough to where if I ever did get some relief, I could live a healthy life post incarceration. So my diet,
you had a diet in there?
Yeah, I modified one. I created one by simply not choosing to eat a lot of the processed foods that they served. Getting my quality rest. You know, people have this idea that prison preserves you. That's bullshit. Prison don't preserve you. The stress of prison will eat you alive like any cancer, any diabetes, or any ulcer. What preserves you is a healthy mind. And a healthy mind or healthy body would follow. So I had a regular regimen of the kind of materials I read, the quality of rest that I chose to get, and the exercises that I chose to take on as a regimen. All of those things work together to preserve somebody while they're in such a stressful, tense situation as incarceration. But people want to say prison preserves you because you haven't been out here with the wear and tear. You want to switch places? Do you? You don't get a break in prison. You don't get a weekend off. You don't get a Christmas holiday. You don't get that in prison. It's nonstop every day. The stress of that will kill you, and I've seen it literally kill people. Literally. So that's a myth. That's a misnomer that prison preserves you. It's making a dogmatic commitment to taking care of yourself despite being surrounded in such a dismal place that's full of death, man. Yeah, daily. And that takes such a great sense of self or self-love to do that.
Robert?
To do that despite that environment. So genes, great genes. My mother has beautiful skin. My sister does too. And keeping my stress level to a minimum. I'm a spiritual person, so I filtered a lot of my toxins through my faith. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. My faith also carried me when I couldn't carry myself, man. And I will admit to you, man, I couldn't carry my sins. I'm not one of them dudes that thinks they so tough that, yo, I handled it. I just handled it because I'm just like that. Nah, that's not my story, dude. Every piece that helped me handle it, I needed every piece that helped me handle it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. All right.